One missing? Yep. Is Kevin going to be here tonight, do we know?
No, he is not.
He's not. Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The preamble to the Missouri Constitution. We, the people of Missouri, with profound reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe and grateful for his goodness, do establish this Constitution for the better government of the state. And we now have prayer from Jamie Rush.
Thank you. Shall we pray? Father in heaven, I come before you tonight. And I thank you for this city, and I thank you for the opportunity that you have given to me. And I just ask you, Lord, for the best decisions to be made according to your will. And that, Lord, that you will be blessed and honored in this place. I pray that you would give us all wisdom and the knowledge and understanding that we seek from you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
McConnell, Klontz.
Here.
Simmons.
Here.
Akers.
Here.
Skanes.
Here.
Milton.
Here.
Castellan.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We come to the time of the public comment. Has anyone signed up for public comment, Madam Clerk? Yes. Okay. Then I need to read my speaker decorum.
Your Honor, we have a Employee of the Month.
Oh,
And
Can you do that? I can do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can do it.
thank you. It's a,
Yes, let's do that. I realize John Pate's even here. I see him back there. I'm sorry, thank you. Employee of the Month, John Pate, and Brian Klontz, Alderman, will introduce him. Come on down, John.
Where you want me? You're good right there. Thank you. All right. All right. It's my privilege to present the City of Branson Service and Excellence Employee of the Month Award for April 2020 to Branson Police Department Dispatcher John Pate. This award is to recognize employees who've gone above and beyond and whose performance exemplifies the City of Branson values. John Pate showed great professionalism, service, and compassion during a recent call into the dispatch center from a concerned member of our community who was emotionally distraught about a friend that may have overdosed. John was patient, empathetic, and went above and beyond to track down the location of the victim with very little information to go on. During this interaction, John displayed the Branson City values of service and courtesy as he responded with respect and a helpful attitude. On behalf of the Mayor, Board of Aldermen, City Administrator, and City staff, it is my honor to present this plaque naming John Pate as the City of Branson April 2020 Service and Excellence Employee of the Month. Congratulations and keep up the good work. Okay.
John, you have any family in Louisiana?
No, I do not.
That's my grandfather's name was John Pate. I got to check you out.
Probably did. Is that it? Do you have any words to say? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, public comment. In order to give everyone a chance to speak tonight, I would like to ask that if you're speaking on an item, that you keep your comments succinct to the topic and as short as possible. You will be allowed to only speak once on an item, and please do not repeat what has already been said by another speaker. Once public discussion has ended on an item, the board starts their discussion No additional comments will be taken from the audience unless an alderman specifically requests that we ask someone back up. Please remember to speak into the mic and state your name, address for the record. There's a 5-minute limit. Yes, sir.
My name is Douglas Clark. I've been here before and mainly concerned about the Constitution and what we happen to be doing locally that has some bearing on that. We do say the pledge. We do say an oath that we agree to support the Constitution, although local oaths of office don't say to defend it from enemies, foreign and domestic. I think we do have some domestic enemies here that are in our midst. We may or may not know about the intricacies or the connections between public policy that comes from Washington, D.C. down through the state and where it emanated originally from. And that's what I have done for the last 30 years, is to watch what United Nations policy is, how that balances against our U.S. code, our title laws, and the Constitution, and some of the violations on the Sherman and Clayton antitrust acts. And what I fear here now is what we have is a combination of all that involved in this healthcare situation we have. The reason I say that is because the World Health Organization is the primary dictate to the NIH, the World Health Organization, the infectious disease, and those organizations there have taken that policy and made it into public health policy that we have done without really integrating it into actual physical enforceable law. And what the problem is here is we have a situation here and across the country where there's all kinds of variables on how this is enforced. Some places they're arresting people for stuff you wouldn't imagine, and you have women and children having problems with this kind of stuff. But what you have to understand is that you can't violate Title 18, 242 under color of law by declaring an emergency through the public health system, okay? The public health system is not something that has been totally authorized as a statute law that has been run through the state of Missouri under our legislature and debated and put into effect. Now, we had a law that was called the Model States Emergency Health Care Act back in the latter part of 2011. And the unfortunate thing about that is it was written by two professors, one at Harvard and one at Sloan Kettering, okay? And there was quite a bit of pushback on that. It was under the anthrax and the smallpox, So we got a lot of obtuse things with a lot of emergency things that included a lot of people, especially doctors, don't have an opportunity if they are called upon in that. It is like a national emergency or quoted national emergency, and you have to go perform where they tell you to perform to, whether you want to or not, or it's a felony violation. So where this is all going is we're coming down to the nitty-gritty here on this, where this stuff all kicks in with a lot of force, and we have people that are going to be subjected before they can go back to work under some of the requirements that they're making up and have been planning for years. This just didn't happen overnight here. This was something that's being thought and talked about for probably at least 10 years that I know of. So they're going to make us have a test or get a temperature, like some places are doing now, to see if you're a carrier or you're in the process of having a disease. And then you will have to go get a test. If you come up positive on the test, then you're either going to have to go get a vaccine or self-quarantine, and it will be enforceable by what entity in the local community is going to be the enforcement arm of that. Typically, it's the local city police that does it to the majority of the cases. A lot of sheriffs are not agreeing with this. But then there's two things they're going to do. Then after you do all this, if you get a vaccine, the vaccine they're going to give you has got a bioluminescent thing in this vaccine, and it's an RNA or an mRNA vaccine with that tracer in it, so they'll be able to read your body to see if you have got the vaccine, and also you can have a tattoo that's made from the same substance that'll read out like a barcode. Now, I'm a Bible believer here, and there's a warning about that in the Bible. Now, why are we acquiescing to people that are violating our constitutional rights over protection of our body, for one thing? If you're a student of our history, And why are we letting it dictate what our commerce is for another? Now, the violation of the antitrust acts with this is that Mr. Fauci, Mr. Collins, several of these people that you see on TV every day,
You're under 30 seconds.
okay, they are in cross-directorships of corporations that are going to be directly making money from producing this stuff, and that is against the law for a variety of reasons. There's conflict of interest there over producing a profit off of a, what we're describing here. And I can prove everything I'm saying here because it's all, you have to look for it in depth. But if anybody cares to know about this stuff, I'll be glad to educate you on it because I've got about 15 notebooks on just this aspect of this alone and where it started and how it's been evolved to this point.
Doug, you're at the end of your time.
So that's what I had to say, and I hope somebody might have a little bit of interest in maybe finding out where it all began.
Thank you for coming and sharing. Any other speakers?
Your Honor, we do not have another speaker, but I do think we have a staff announcement from our IT director tonight, so.
Good evening. So Stan and John wanted me to just make everyone aware and point out that we just had a quick announcement regarding the new cameras that you see inside our chambers here. So prior to COVID-19, we started looking at platforms to enhance our transparency, to include audiovisual systems in this room. We continue to work through the COVID-19 situation with a focus on social distancing. And you'll notice that we added a couple cameras, one right back here and one right above me. With some minor production during the meeting, this enables us to stream to YouTube, and it allows our citizens to watch the meeting live from nearly any device that they have available. You can watch the meeting by clicking on live stream, the link that's on the front page of our city website. Melody also sends the link out on Facebook. I'd want to point out also that we increased the microphone levels at the podium and at your dais, and we encourage you to keep the microphone fairly close to you. This will ensure that everyone listening in this room and on the stream can hear everyone clearly. That's all I got, and I'll let you proceed with the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. All righty. We're ready to go into our consent agenda. I have another item I need to read for the decorum of the meeting. It is my responsibility as mayor under state law to take care that the ordinances of the city and the state laws related to our city are complied with. Under one of our ordinances, Branson Municipal Code 2-64, I am tasked with the responsibility of being the presiding officer of the board and am required to preserve strict order and decorum in all meetings of the board. Decorum is often defined by the dictionary as propriety and good taste in conduct or appearance. And one of the many definitions of order is the state of peace, freedom from confused or unruly behavior, and respect for the law and proper authority. Unfortunately, we have had a number of recent abstentions from votes without proper basis for the abstention. The citizens of Branson elected us to make decisions on policy matters, and we make those decisions by voting. We are obligated to vote unless a conflict of interest prevents us from doing so. The common law of the state of Missouri supports this. Although I cannot force any member of the board to cast a vote, and no member can be required to cast a vote, I do have the ability to control the order and decorum of these meetings. As a result, I'm announcing under my authority to preserve order and decorum of these meetings that any abstention by any member of the board during the meeting can be recast as a no vote. Thank you. Madam Clerk, we have a consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda from the audience that would like to have pulled down? Anyone in the audience like to have anything pulled down? Any aldermen?
We have a request from staff for item number 12. If somebody would mind doing that, please.
Chris Lebeck?
We just
We need
need,
a
we just
motion.
need somebody to request that to come down.
Okay. I request that we pull item number 12 from the consent agenda and place it as the first item on the regular agenda.
Thank you.
Explanation?
No, if we'll just go on with the consent agenda, and then we'll move on to that regular agenda item.
Okay. quiet.
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Alderman minutes of the May 4th, 2020 special meeting, the May 12th, 2020 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of minutes of the Advisory Park Board meeting of January 21st, 2020. Acknowledge receipt of annexation petition filed for a property located at 135 Lakefront Drive, Branson, Missouri. Final reading of Bill Number 5809, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Online Solutions, LLC, DBA CitizenServe for a land management software solution, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 5810, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with ArcBest Bank for purchase card services, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 5811, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Central Bank for banking services, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 5812, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement between Taney County and the City of Branson to allow the county to provide funding toward the cost of city's planned 2020 sewer system improvements, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 5813, an ordinance accepting a proposal of Gulf State Distributors Incorporated to provide ammunition, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 5814, an ordinance approving the renewal of the memorandum of understanding between the Missouri Department of Public Safety pertaining to the Law Enforcement Support Office Program, and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement. Final reading of Bill Number 5815, an ordinance accepting a proposal of Under the Wire LLC pertaining to traffic signal maintenance services for the city, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 5817, an ordinance approving a second amendment to the contract with Stone Ridge Carpet Incorporated, DBA Stone Ridge Flooring Design pertaining to carpet replacement, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 5819, an ordinance approving the 2020-2021 property liability and workers' compensation insurance coverage and premiums paid to Connell Insurance Incorporated with property liability coverage through Tokyo Marine HCC and workers' compensation coverage through Missouri Employers Mutual Insurance Company for the City of Branson, authorize the mayor to execute the documents related thereto. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
The floor is open for a motion approving the items left on the consent agenda.
So move. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote on the consent agenda as it stands. There are 5 aldermen present. The votes are yes, 5. It passes. Let's go to item 12 now, under the regular agenda.
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill Number 5818, an ordinance approving the sale of real estate to Rodriguez Real Estate Investment, LLC, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Okay. Report from Chris Lebec.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I've requested this item to be brought down today. Thank you, Alderman Klontz, for doing so, because I'm asking for it to be postponed to the last meeting in June. The situation that follows is this contract was based on a legal description that has basically carried through multiple versions of a lease. Okay, this property we have leased to these people for quite some time. We had HDR Engineering do some minor subdivision plat. During that process over the past couple of days, it's been identified that that legal description is wrong. What happened is it never took into account the widening of Pat Nash Road, so it's off pretty significantly. So as a result of that, I've reached out to the attorney on the other side, discussed this with him, and this is going to basically change this agreement as a result. So we're going to ask that the closing be pushed off if the board does decide to approve it. So in order to give us enough time to finalize this legal description and to reassess the agreement, I'm asking that this be pushed off to the last meeting in June. And this goes to sage advice of Alderman Simmons that this is why double reads are sometimes not a good idea. So I'm asking for some grace here on this one. Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion to postpone the final reading of the bill 5818?
So move.
Motion and a second?
And that postponement will be to the date not to exceed June 23rd, 2020.
Yes. All right. Had a second? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this item regarding the postponement? Any alderman
My obvious question is that a good time frame? Do you suggest that is a good time frame and this can be rectified by then?
I'm supposed to have the plat in my hand tomorrow, along with an updated legal description and a legal description encompassing both properties. So the plan is to take that, coordinate with the attorney on the other side. This may end up changing the arrangement and the financial component of this because it's a smaller piece of property, but as a result of that, I anticipate substituting in a new agreement for this board to consider at some point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes. Larry.
Chris, do you know, when we change the legal description, do you know what it'll do to the size, shape, frontage of the property?
It's going to basically and again, this is all preliminary. I don't have the final in front of me, so with that, we'll say a caveat. It's going to basically shave approximately 2,700 square feet off of the Pat Nash side of the property. And I'll know the specific details tomorrow and can inform the board once that's in hand. But that's what I'm being told as of, I think about 11 o'clock today.
Any other questions from the Alderman? Please vote. Oh, excuse me. Alderman Simmons?
That we will be able to relate our appraisal of that property to the new size, right?
We will. The appraisal gives us not only a raw number of how much, but also price per square foot.
Yeah.
So I anticipate that number that is going to come before the board is going to be smaller because, again, we're taking approximately 10% off of the size of this piece of property. So that's where the conversation with the other attorney is going to occur once we know exactly what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Chris, when you get that new plat.
Mr. Mill? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, when you get that new plat, could you forward that to us so we can review it?
Okay?
Thank you.
Any other comments? Please vote. There are 5 aldermen present. Yes, 5. Passes. Item 14. It's a special permit application. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is a resolution approving a special event permit application for the Veterans Day Parade.
Have a staff report from Joe Hornicle.
Mayor, members of the board, this is this year's request, which would be for Wednesday, November the 11th. Their parade would commence at 11 o'clock in the morning, as it always does. They're asking to begin setup for the parade at 8 o'clock that morning, with all breakdown concluded by 2 p.m. that afternoon. The route, as you can see up here on the screen, is the same counterclockwise route through the downtown that they've had for the last several years, and it's worked very well. We always get our staff to take a look at this. They've included the numbers in your staff report this evening, showing an expense of approximately $9,719.21. However, the police department has updated their number with a $2,000 addition for this year's event, which then brings the cost to $11,741.71. And just as a reminder, per Branson Municipal Code, Section 94-65H, you all always have the option to make the applicant responsible for any of these expenses incurred for the city. As a result, staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
You've heard a report from Joe. Do I have a motion adopting this resolution?
So move.
Second.
Is there a second? There's a second. You guys are quick. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this matter? Any alderman wishing to speak to this matter?
Yes, sir. Have we ever charged anybody for Veterans Parade before?
Not to this point, no.
Any other questions? Or yes, Larry?
Joel, I'm really troubled with this, and I think we've talked briefly in the past about comparing the permit cost versus the benefit, sales tax benefit to the city.
Sure.
Charging $11,700 for this Veterans Day parade, I'm really having a hard time with that. The amount of revenue, and I don't know, but I'm sure we could look to see what the amount of revenue generated in the city during the Veterans Day parade period is. And in my opinion, I would like us to encourage more of these kind of events and not discouraging them with any permit fees.
Yeah, the permit fee for a special event is only about $111. It's just, we always like to include the cost incurred by the city to assist with the events. And as I said, code does offer the ability for the city to recoup those costs.
I just think the format of having the city cover those costs, they can cover those costs because out of the additional revenue that comes into the city.
Sure.
Because we wouldn't have that additional revenue if we didn't have this event, right?
Understood.
Any other questions or comments from the Alderman? Please vote. We have 5 Aldermen present. Yes, 4, no, 1. Please give detail. All right. Larry Milton, no. Brian Clontz, yes. Rick Castellon, yes. Bill Skanes, yes. Bob Simmons, yes. I'm sorry, is there a question?
Not from me.
Joel, Mayor, may I ask him a question? We're dealing with the issue of social distancing and all this stuff. What's all the discussions has there been with the parade and?
At this point, I'm not aware of any updated conversations that have taken place. Obviously, we have the state's requirements and the CDC guidelines to go off of at this point. But I think there's a lot of discussions yet to occur between now and then to really iron things out.
Okay, thank you.
All we simply approved at this point is the parade to be able to happen and the fee of $111.
Correct.
Item number 16, Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill Number 5820, an ordinance approving a final subdivision plat for 248 Parkway, Phase 2.
Have a staff report from, looks like Joel rather than Mike.
So yes, as the title for this item, Mayor and members of the board mentioned, this is the final subdivision plat. You all reviewed and approved the preliminary subdivision plat for this area back in March of last year. Since that time, they have submitted the final plat to staff, which is in compliance with the preliminary plat. In other words, they haven't made any changes. They additionally have gone out there and constructed all the necessary infrastructure. They've extended sewer and water lines. They've built a private cul-de-sac to access the 5th lot. If I can bounce back here. There we go. So there's creating 4 lots, new lots along State Highway 248, and then the cul-de-sac that you can see here is providing access to that 5th lot that sits back from State Highway 48. Again, all the improvements have been constructed and approved by the city. Therefore, staff recommends approval, as well as the Planning Commission, who voted during their May meeting for approval as well. Happy to answer any questions.
You've heard the first reading of Bill Number 5821. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So move.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, but we're on Bill Number 5820, just to make sure we're on the right item.
Well, I read the wrong one then. I'm sorry. It should have been item 15, not item 16. Yeah, all right. Excuse me. All right, you've heard the first reading of Bill Number 5820. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So move.
Second? Second. Right. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this matter? Any aldermen?
Have they finished everything, Joel, they need to do in there? I remember us discussing just.
Yeah, it actually wrapped up, I think, the day before the Planning Commission, everything. Yep.
Thank you.
No questions? Please vote. Now, item 16.
Thank you.
Yes, 5. 5 present. Approved. Item 16.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill Number 5821, an ordinance approving an agreement for professional consultant services between the City of Branson and HDR Engineering Incorporated for subgrade analysis and preliminary engineering of a flood protection system at the city's Compton Drive wastewater treatment plant, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Have a staff report from Mike Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. 3 engineering proposals were received for subgrade analysis, surface and groundwater hydraulic modeling, and preliminary design of the flood protection system for Compton Drive wastewater treatment plant. This treatment plant is, with its proximity to Lake Taneycomo, has been in danger of inundation from flooding 3 times since 2011. The work to be done in this phase is referred to as Phase 2 of the project engineering. A conceptual design study identified viable options to provide flood protection for the facility, and that was completed in 2019. A permanent sheet pile style flood wall with an associated groundwater pumping system was recommended by the study engineer to provide the best protection for this facility. The engineering proposals were presented to the Capital Improvements Committee in September of 2019. Of the 3 firms submitting proposals, staff recommended HDR Engineering with offices in Kansas City, Missouri, as the best qualified candidate. After discussion, the committee voted unanimously to approve staff's recommendation and to proceed with a contract negotiation. The work in this phase has been broken out into individual tasks and outlined in the attached contract scope of work, and it includes geotechnical and geophysical investigations, which will provide accurate depth of bedrock and thorough information regarding all subsurface materials. These technologies utilize seismic surface waves and electrode currents to measure signal velocities retrieved from various levels of ground strength. Coupled with the traditional geotechnical borings, this subsurface information is highly accurate and highlights the subsurface anomalies and bedrock variations across the site. Surveys of the groundwater surface, surveys of the ground surface within and adjacent to the facilities will be conducted, along with the floor of Lake Taneycomo for hydraulic modeling purposes, defining the floodway limits and the no-rise conditions. From the analysis and surveys, HDR will establish design criteria for the structural requirements, including required depth of the wall and capacity of the required groundwater pumps. HDR will meet with required regulatory agencies and provide project information to obtain future required permits, approvals, and possible first certifications. A series of progress meetings and workshops will be held during the design phase with outcomes and recommendations to be presented to the Board of Aldermen at a future study session prior to the finalization of the basis for design report. HDR possesses extensive experience in this type of work to be performed. Charles Sievert will be the lead project manager, and Mr. Sievert does have a significant amount of experience with this type of work and was actually involved while he was working at Black and Veatch with this project, so he does have knowledge. Mr. Eric Dove will also perform as principal in this project. Mr. Dove has extensive experience working with regulatory agencies concerning flood protection projects, water modeling, floodplain mapping. Staff also contacted references for HDR. Each spoke openly of their experience with working with the firm with largely favorable comments. The value of the Compton facility is approximately $80 million in today's dollars. To relocate the Compton facility, it would cost in excess of $100 million. The city has invested $96,800 in the conceptual study. HDR has provided a not-to-exceed price of $456,145 for this next phase of engineering. The attached contract is written with compensation for time and materials up to the maximum limit. Should the combination of tasks total less than the upper limit, or should it not be necessary to complete any of the tasks, the city will not be responsible for the remaining gap of the total amount of the contract. Funding from the Taney County Sewer Sales Tax will be utilized to reimburse the city for this engineering expense. Staff recommends approval of the bill. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You've heard the first reading of Bill number 5821. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second's been made. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak regarding this matter? Any alderman wishing to speak regarding this matter?
Just a simple statement. Thank you for the work that you all have done, and it's about time we did this. We're looking at another opportunity here in the next week or so to see where that water level is going to rise to. As I'd stated earlier, and I was 20 years of age, my father-in-law was building Lakewood Estates. I watched water boil right out of the sand down there, and it wasn't anywhere near as high as it is right now, which has me concerned about that facility. Thank you.
Yes, Larry?
Mike, could you provide assurances to Lakewood Estates, which is in my ward, and that's where we live, that there will be no adverse effect to Lakewood Estates, either from the building of that or the outflows, any of that nature?
Right.
Where that subdivision is on the cusp of flooding.
Right. Yeah, there will be extensive research put into the effects of any conditions that might adversely affect that area. And our goal is to have a no-rise condition. The facility is very close to the floodway. It is in the floodplain. So we need to stay out of the floodway. Any construction or obstacles that are placed in the floodway has a high potential of backing up, so to speak, and possibly flooding. With this facility being in the floodplain, it's, if you take an example of like a pond, and you put a hollow cylinder in that pond, as long as you do not block the current through the pond or the outlet of the pond, you are less apt to have any kind of adverse effect on the level of that pond, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think simply, if I'm asked questions on this, I can reply that we're very conscious of that concern.
Yes.
Or if worse comes to worse, if there was any negative impact, that the city would take care of that.
Right. And in the workshop that we will have with the Board of Aldermen, we'll make sure that details are explained in that area.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Alderman Simmons.
Mike, just out of curiosity, do these tests that they're doing of the modeling of the bottom of the lake, we have Roark Creek coming out just above that, and it is a constantly moving, changing, I'm sure the gravel and mud and stuff that comes out of Roark changes every time we have a big rain, both from what comes out of Roark and what comes down the lake. Do these studies take that into consideration at all? And I don't know whether that coming out of Roark is helping our situation or if it's hurting our situation, but it would look like an opportunity to have an opinion on that if that's something that they are going to be there doing anyway.
There'll be a broad area that they will survey of the lake floor at the plant, below the plant, and above the plant. Okay. And you're right, it does vary somewhat during extremely high events. We witnessed that at the Meadows intake station. What used to be the main channel in one location is now a depositing area, and the channel has shifted. Yeah. I think we'll probably realize that Lake Taneycomo is filling in with gravel and rock, and that's the reason they want to do surveying of the floor to tie that into the impact that we will have by building the structure. That all ties into the no-rise condition. So there is some variability. So we may survey the floor 1 week, and then 2 months later we may get a significant amount of rain, and it may shift that. But the overall depth should remain fairly constant, the average depth, I should say. So it's,
Thank you. I know it's rapidly changing, and it's been several years ago, but I was involved in just an informal study with a water level and the type of material on the bottom of the lake there, right in that Roark outlet, and it's surprising how much material is there and how it changes almost every rain. So
it does migrate downstream.
yeah, thank you.
Any other comments? Just a comment from me. I know through the discussions of seeking the funding through HUD and through any other organizations to help us, that part of that process will be to do a complete review of looking at what can be done. The flooding part of it is very difficult. We don't know when we're going to get that unbelievable flood, and there's no way to be able to predict that or for us to take responsibility for that unforeseen flood. So it's a very difficult situation, but I know that there's lots of information yet to come.
We actually deployed or staged groundwater pumping equipment and actually moved 3 sections of the aqua dam into the facility today because of the predictions and the possibility of releases from Table Rock and the elevation of Table Rock, the water level. It's very high. So we hit a trigger point yesterday with some information from the Corps and started that process. So we want to be ahead of the game.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. Mike, I was reading that the Corps had postponed the release so they could get the water out of the Buffalo into that part of the White River and on down before they were going to release out of the dam. Have they relayed to you anything as far as when they're expected to release?
Chief Martin has been in contact with the Corps, and as of this morning, they had planned to start later today. I'm not sure if that's changed. I think he's still waiting for the final and latest update. But as far as I know right now, it's slated for later today.
Okay, thank you.
Please vote. There are 5 aldermen present. Yes, 5. Passes.
Thank you.
Item number 17. Madam Clerk, please provide an introduction for this item.
Your Honor, this is the first reading Bill number 5822, an ordinance amending the adopted 2019 budget for the City of Branson to adjust monies for the Tourism Fund for the Branson, Missouri Regional Airport TDD.
We have a staff report from Jamie Roush.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. We received the most recent invoice from the Branson Regional Airport at the end of April, 1st of May, in the amount of $80,620.16. This invoice is for the services of July through December of 2019, and we are recommending approval and to create a budget amendment from the Tourism Fund in this amount. Thank you.
All right, you've heard the first reading of Bill 5822. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second's been made. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this item? Any alderman wishing to speak to this item? Mr. Milton.
Jamie, this figure, this is the
$8.24, yes, sir.
24 cents. So that figure represents close to 10,000.
Yes, sir.
plans.
9,784.
9784. And who is it that reviews those invoices from the airport?
My staff does.
Okay. Because I know there was a time where there was questions of, are they coming in, are they going to Harrison? I don't know what all the benchmarks were.
It's based on their origination, their location. We get quite a bit of information, and it comes from the Department of Transportation. What happens after that is there's a third-party company that was put into place years ago by the airport. I think their name is Seabury, and they consolidate that information. We then get it, and then during our audit, we also confirm that information as a part of the audit through the auditors. So,
Thank you.
Alderman Simmons.
I'm sorry, I should have asked you this previously, but do you happen to have any idea how this compares to the previous year at the same time?
Yes, sir. So last year at this time, it was 5,547 passengers. This year, it's 9,784. Last year, we paid $45,715. This year, it's $80,000. It's higher payment, but it means that they brought more passengers to Branson, almost double if you look at it that way, from last year at this time versus this year. It was July through
So was
December
there
of
more-
2019.
Was there more limited service the previous year?
I believe that they brought in another airline, but I can't speak for sure to that. But they're doing O'Hare and DFW and, give me one second. Denver, yes, Denver this time. So we did have more passengers, which is a good thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, any other? How about down front? Okay. All right. Please vote.
Thank you.
5 Aldermen present, yes, 5. Thank you, Jamie. Approved. On to item, that's the last one in the regular agenda. Reports. Alderman Klontz,
Nothing to report.
Alderman Simmons,
No report.
Alderman Skanes,
Yes, sir. We had conference call all day long today to discuss allocations and additional monies coming in under dislocated workers because of the amount of increased people or numbers of people that are being laid off. This area will get anywhere from additional $600,000 to maybe up to as much as $2 million. We'll see. That will be added to the available number of people want to enter institutional training through the technical colleges and the community colleges. We're going through a time like we haven't seen since the 1980s, when Reynolds, Alcoa, Dow, Kodak, the savings and loans were all done laying off. This is a totally different thing, with many businesses closing down because of COVID-19. Just wanted to make that point, Mr. Mayor. We're keeping on it.
Alderman Milton.
Yes, I have a report. My report this week is very troubling for me and should be for this Board of Aldermen and the concerned citizens of Branson. I reduced this to writing so I would do my best to stay on task. I am raising a red flag regarding the Public Safety Tax Fund. First, I will give some background and then I will provide specific concerns. This safety tax was passed by the Branson residents and the fund began collecting taxes April 1st of 2018. The voters were promised that if they passed this tax, there would be an oversight committee and there would be no supplanting from the general fund. Betsy McConnell first addressed this board on February 11th asking financial questions about the safety tax fund. Bill Skanes has commented from this dais stating there is an oversight committee. I received a few phone calls from Branson residents and business owners asking about her questions, and I replied, I'll get back with them. At the time, I was thinking it's probably going to take an hour or two by contacting the Public Safety Tax Fund Oversight Committee and get those questions answered. So I contacted Bill Skanes, a member of the Oversight Committee, and asked a few very basic questions, 3 questions to be exact. Bill would not answer any of my questions and referred me to the chairman of the Oversight Committee, Dick Gass. These questions were so simple that I asked Bill why he would not answer them. Again, his only response was contact the chairman of the committee. I was dumbfounded why Bill would not answer these questions, and he responded, Larry, this is the 3rd time that I said contact the chairman. So then I contacted the chairman, Dick Gass, and asked him the same 3 questions that I asked Bill. And here's the 3 questions. Question number 1, does the Oversight Committee have scheduled meetings or do they meet as needed? Chairman's response was they meet as needed. They meet as needed. I asked this because I wanted to attend the next Oversight Committee meeting to ask some financial questions. Question number 2, how often the Oversight Committee meet during 2019? Chairman's response, he was not certain, but probably 4 to 5 times. Again, I asked this to get an idea of how long it would be before their next meeting so I could attend. And just note that I did ask Bill Skanes how many times the committee met, because maybe he wasn't available to attend all the meetings. I asked him how many times he met with the committee, and he refused to answer. Question 3, does the Oversight Committee review the financials for this fund? Chairman's response, no. They only compare the tax collected for the Public Safety Tax Fund with the tax collected for the transportation tax to make sure these were close to the same amounts due to the transportation tax being collected the same way. Betsy McConnell addressed the Board of Aldermen for a second time on February 27th regarding the accountability of this fund. She stated that the information that she was provided by the city was missing $3.1 million. I then received several calls. Larry, the city is not really missing $3.1 million, are they? After this communication, I raised a yellow flag and asked, who reviews the financials for the Public Safety Tax Fund? I was told that the Budget and Finance Committee is the oversight committee that reviews these funds. I was alarmed because I am on the Budget and Finance Committee, and we have not acted as an oversight committee for this fund. I recall at each meeting reviewing a 1 or 2 page summary report of this fund, but in no way were we acting as an oversight committee looking for possible supplanting of funds, for example. Now that I was made aware that I am on the committee responsible for overseeing the financials, I started asking questions. I will admit that my frustration started building as many of my questions were met with resistance and deflecting. I was unable to get straight answers. For example, I wanted to see a printout from our accounting software that provided each check written from this account. I was provided the same report that was later posted on the City of Branson's website. Go to the website, it's under Reports, right side, it's Public Safety Expense Report. I responded to John that this report was a 134-page document in a PDF format that was not very useful. This is an example. This is the report that currently is on our website. It's in a PDF format, and the order it's in is by vendor number. And so I ask anybody that's listening if they would go to our city website, look at this public safety expense report and see if it provides them any information. I then ask if the same information could be provided and sorted by description so it would make some sense. John responded that our accounting software was not able to provide this information. He stated that we are looking into a new software that would provide this information. One might think that with an accounting department budget in excess of $1 million annually, that they would be able to provide this basic information with or without a new accounting software program. So I exported this PDF document into Excel. This took about 10 minutes, and I now have a file that you can sort by descriptions, dates, amounts, vendor numbers, and so on. I also inserted the 2017 expense that was provided to me by John. I wanted this information as 2017 I looked at that as a base year without the public safety tax, so we could verify there was no supplanting from the general fund. I now have an Excel file that will sort all the checks for the past 3 years, any way we would want, including by description of the checks and who they were paid to. A few results from this Excel file says, in the past 3 years, there was a total of 7,258 checks written for public safety. 2,211 checks in 2017, 2,258 checks in 2018, and 2,791 checks in 2019. I wanted to review any possible supplanting as there were 412 new descriptions used and 51 new vendor accounts added in 2019 that were not used in 2017 or 2018. This does not prove anything by itself, but I thought it would be a good place to start. I want to wrap this up, and I will not bore you with the questions that this report raises. We'll do that later. Before I do, I need to say that I am sick and tired of Mayor Akers repeatedly asking, why is one alderman asking these questions? What do you plan on doing with this information? What are your motives behind asking these questions? These questions should come from the Board of Aldermen, not just one alderman. These questions should come from the Budget and Finance Committee, not just one committee member. I responded to Mayor Akers by saying that I'm just trying to get some questions answered. If you want this to blow up and not simply answer my questions, I will certainly do that, and that is what I'm doing tonight. I've spent over 100 hours during the past 5 months, and I'm tired of getting the resistance and the runaround. Stan, our city administrator, and Jamie, our finance director, and John repeatedly ask, Larry, we have provided you the same information to your questions over and over. Why do you keep asking questions? Well, my simple answer is that I have been provided with bits and pieces of information that I'm unable to get to add up. For example, the expenses that are posted on the website, these expenses that are on our website, when you total up the year 2018, I'm using that year just as an example, these expenses come to $2,413,973.16 without payroll. When Jamie was asked the same question at our Tuesday meeting, she responded with $909,601 without payroll. Why am I raising a red flag today? Much of my communication has been going back and forth countless times via email. So I asked for John and Jamie to sit with me to go through my questions together. I was somewhat surprised when I arrived at the meeting to find John and Jamie, along with Mayor Akers, Chief Martin, Chief Matthews, and Chena in attendance. This meeting was on Tuesday, May 19th. In this meeting, I asked for some basic financial information regarding our police and fire revenue expenses, including the public safety tax fund. I was asking for 6 blanks to be filled in. And think about how simple this is. How simple it sounds to me. Start with the beginning balance, how much money went in, how much money came out, if there was any money spent on capital improvements, and the ending balance. I began the meeting asking to simply provide the answers to these 6 questions that I just read and said this meeting should not take more than 30 minutes. The meeting lasted an hour and a half. 10 minutes providing the answers that I was asking for the 1 year of 2018, and the rest of the meeting arguing over why I was asking these questions. I interrupted the meeting several times after 15 minutes of back and forth and kept reminding those in the meeting, we could have already finished this versus debating it back and forth. Jamie assisted me to complete the 6 answers for 2018, which took about 10 minutes. I then asked to spend 10 minutes completing the 6 questions for 2019. I entered the ending balance of 2018 into the beginning balance column for 2019. That is when the train fell off the tracks. The ending balance in 2018 and the beginning balance for 2019 was off by about $142,000. Jamie immediately said that she knows where that difference is. However, I have gone through our 2020 annual budget and I couldn't find it. So Jamie said that she will provide me with the $442,000 explanation, because she knows where it is, and fill out these questions and get them to me the same day or the following day. I have not heard a peep, and I do not have the hours nor the desire to continuing playing charades and continuing to chase down this information. I do not believe, nor do I have any reason to believe, that there's any wrongdoing going on with our city finances. Lord knows that I am not perfect, and I surely do not expect our accounting department to be perfect. I would expect them to be accurate, not perfect. We all make mistakes. However, I should be able to ask questions without causing so much pushback and uproar. I do think it's a good idea to have a second set of eyes reviewing the details of our accounts, at least initially for the Public Safety Tax Fund, so we may report back to our taxpayers that this fund does have financial oversight. We do confirm that there was no supplanting, as we promised them. I chose to be an alderman. I vote my conscience, ask questions, and to be responsible to my ward and to our entire community. I want to believe that our residents and business owners expect me to ask questions and not simply go along with City Hall, smile, stay quiet, and vote along with whatever City Hall is recommending. It is obvious that the mayor and City Hall would prefer that I just stay quiet and shut up. I cannot do that. If the aldermen were not asking questions, you would not need aldermen. The city administrator and staff could just make the decisions for all of us. There are 3 aldermen that are constantly asking the hard questions, and we are occasionally called obstructionists and troublemakers. In my heart of hearts, I believe our community is much better off by having aldermen that take the occasional criticism in order to make a positive difference. So I'm asking this board to consider expanding the scope of work for our current city audit, which is taking place right now, to include a detailed audit addressing the Public Safety Tax Fund so we can report back to our residents. I'm also asking Stan to place this item on our next Board of Aldermen meeting to be discussed and voted on. Thank you.
Alderman Dobbins, excuse me, Administrator Dobbins. Oh, I missed Rick Castellan down below. I'm sorry, Rick.
No report.
Administrator Dobbins.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no actual report. I would say that Alderman Milton, I understand your frustration. The biggest problem that we have is your lack of understanding of governmental financing. There's been more than one meeting that the individuals that you've noted have sat down with you and tried to explain those to you. Supplanting does not exist. Our audits every year do audit the Public Safety Fund, and if you recall last year, it came back as a completely clean audit. The Finance Committee does review every expenditure. The report you were given was because I was told that you asked for every expenditure from the Public Safety Fund. That's why that is so large. You were given every single expenditure. I apologize that it's that large, but that's what it is. The police department and the fire department are integral in the review of their own budgets, as well as the issue of the public safety sales tax only provides a certain portion of funds to the public safety department. The city then provides $7.6 million on top of that. All of those funds that come together, they are combined to be able to pay the employees. And I will tell you that the biggest expense in those expenditures are employee salaries. And that's why when you talk about the funds involved, yes, there were some money that were spent from it for capital because of the 2 new buildings that we're trying to get built. But thank you very much for noting that, no, they're not perfect. I do expect them to be. Do they make mistakes? Sure. But we try to correct those or find them. And I can promise you that there is no deception. I'm not sure what the issue is with the back and forth. As far as that meeting went, I was not present, so I won't speak on that. But I will tell you that every time that you have asked for anything, I have instructed John and Jamie to provide it in the best format possible for you to be able to understand it. That's the end of my report, Mr. Mayor.
My report got word today that the employment office here in Branson is trying to reopen about June 15th to deal with unemployment issues for the people in the community. There are several, obviously, folks that are out of work, still not working the amount of hours and so on they wish to be. And so getting that employment office back open and available, and I know that Alderman Skanes has had a lot to do with that. Working on the future and thinking about the future, I've received today from MML 86 Annual Conference. It's in September, but they also have a new alderman and a new mayor conference every year after the election. Usually it's held the first part of June, but with the elections being held like we're this year, it's wonderful information. I wish all of our aldermen would go because they can get some idea from other people and hear other people share about the difference between governmental accounting and regular corporate accounting. They give information in regard to what our responsibilities are as aldermen and what we're supposed to do. It's a great help. I wish more of our aldermen had taken advantage of going to those sessions to learn about what it is to be an alderman and the responsibilities you have. At this point in time, we have had the Memorial Day weekend. It will be a period of time before we know what possible ramifications from the virus might be. Obviously, it was a time to stop and remember the reason we have Memorial Day. And it was a special time to be able to watch some ceremonies that took place honoring those fallen heroes. I would share with you that the future of Branson will greatly depend on how well we're able to deal with this virus. We don't know what's going to happen in other parts of the country or what might come out of other actions. Had mixed bag of information in regard to how the weekend went for some. Obviously, when you can only open your business up about a third of what you would normally do, it's going to affect the income, affect the number of employees you have. So it's a wait and see now. I'll be anxious to begin over the next 2 weeks to see what happens in regard to any kind of results from the weekend. You know, it's election time, and there's lots of issues going on. There's lots of things that are being brought up. I would hope that we could go into the elections to seek to find the best candidates to serve the citizens of Branson. Our system obviously alternates every 2 years. We got 1 year, we got 3 aldermen, and next year we got another 3 aldermen, and then the mayor every 2 years. I think it's important for people who have an interest in wanting to see Branson move ahead and move forward. I think it's important that we get good information and that we learn from what's going on. But it's important that we also have civility and that we have a relationship where we can work together. And it's sad when that's not happening. This time, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor, say, punch the button.
One is alone on this number.
5 present, 5 yes. Thank you.